Hi, this is David Jenkins, La Plata Town Council, Ward 4, and your host for this La Plata Ward 4 video update. These videos complement my La Plata Ward 4 update podcasts, providing additional information about development projects and related issues and planning projects that impact our community by using screenshots and other visuals as well. So let's get started on this latest video episode. This is about the status of the town's current fiscal year FY 23 budget and the fiscal 24 budget preparation process. Please note that the fiscal 23 year started on July 1st, 2022 and ends on June 30th, 2023. So we're a little bit more than halfway through the current fiscal year. Let's go to the next slide to talk about our current budget, FY23. Specifically, let's talk about the revenues that have been budgeted and how they are allocated. The current FY23 general fund budget equals $15.2 million, which is higher than the previous fiscal year by 46%, primarily due to the American Rescue Plan funds from the federal government. More on that later. So grants in our revenue in the current budget, real property taxes account for 34% of total revenue. This is followed by grants that make up 30% of the total revenue. For the current tax year or the current fiscal year, there was no rise in the current property tax rate, so it remains constant at 32 cents per $100 of assessed evaluation. Now the current budget did also include 15 new full-time equivalent positions, which included 3 in general government, 2 in public safety, and 10 in the public works department. And this requested increase was based upon a organizational study done by the council in 2022. This budget also reflected a cost of living increase and a merit increase as well, based upon another study, a compensation study done by the town council also in 2022 to see how our current employees rate with other salaries within the area, as an opportunity to both retain existing employees as well as attract new staff that we will need. So let's move on to the next slide, which is talking about our expenditures to date in our current FY23 budget. So general government, which includes legislative administration, financial administration, our town attorney, planning and zoning, and information technology and other government services comprises 22% of our expenditures. Public safety includes the police department, emergency preparedness, inspections, and enforcement, and this is 34% of our projected or existing expenditures. Public works includes 38%, and then parks and recreation maintenance includes 6% of our expenditures to date. Now let's also move on to what we call our enterprise funds. These include water and sewer, and please note while they're in one enterprise fund, they are accounted separately for planning and budgeting purposes. So we have the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund, along with sanitation, which is trash and recycling, and stormwater management. These are primarily funded by the fees or rates that we pay for these services. And so let's move into that information as well. So the total enterprise fund budget for FY23 totals $15.9 million. If you look on the right side of the screen, you will see the budget allocation for sanitation, which again is trash services. So the income is primarily from service fees of 66%, and then reserves, which is 32%. And also on the same slide on the right-hand side, it shows the breakdown of our expenditures for sanitation, which includes 44% for operating expenses, 27% for personnel, and 2% for capital. Now the next slide are two pie charts for both sewer and water enterprise funds. So for the sewer, the income allocated for sewer comprises of 35% are service fees and 49% is debt. Primarily, this is from several low-interest United States Department of Agricultural loans for new facilities, including force mains and pumping stations and other related facilities, and then we have 10% in reserves. For sewer expenditures, 56% is spent on capital projects, 28% on operating the system, and then 11% is personnel. To the right side of this slide is the water enterprise. So the income budget allocation for that is 48% service fees and 41% are other fees and grants. On the expenditure side for water, 41% is to capital, 33% for operating expenses, and 19% is for personnel. Let's move to the next enterprise fund, which is stormwater management. This income allocation for stormwater management is 47% from service fees. On the expenditure side for stormwater management is 65% is capital, and primarily this is due to maintaining existing stormwater management facilities in the town as required by the Maryland Department of the Environment. Excuse me. And then 20% of the expenditure for operating costs and 10% for personnel. Now, on the left side of the chart, you'll just see kind of a summary breakdown of all the expenses for all the enterprise funds as of December 31st, 2022, on the left side of the chart. And remember, our fiscal year started on July 1st, 2022, and ends on June 30th, 2023. So let's go to our next slide, which relates to, the status of our American Rescue Plan Grant Fund and that current status of these projects. Now, many projects are still underway or awaiting contract approval and or an award of a contract, subject to federal requirements and review. Now, these funds must be obligated by December 31st, 2024, and must be spent by December 31st, 2026. So we have some time, and I'm not going to read all these current projects, but I can certainly provide additional information upon your request. And please note that because these are federal funds, there will be part of our next required town audit by outside auditors. Finally, let's move over to slide number 8. And as we prepare for fiscal year 24, there are certain concerns or issues that we will be aware of based upon information from our town treasurer and from the department heads. So we will continue to align the budgeted general fund revenues with budgeted general fund expenditures. So we always want to make sure that we balance the budget. We want to make sure that we have secure financing and manage that debt for our town's enterprise funds to support infrastructure requirements. And in a later video or podcast, I can certainly provide information about our audit, which was completed within the last month. Also, then, as part of the future planning for next year's fiscal budget, 2024, we have to continue to evaluate the effects and the trend of the current inflation. While it has eased somewhat, it's still very expensive to buy equipment and other needed assets for the town. We want to make sure that we adequately manage the town's excess fund balances to ensure that we sustain future operating budgets. And again, we have some fund balances that are restricted, and others we can use for other expenditures when needed, but requires approval from the town council upon the recommendation of our town treasurer as well as our department heads. And then we want to continue to implement staff recommendations provided from our organizational study in looking at future staff needs while maintaining a sustainable future operating budget. And as important, then we want to develop and maintain a long-term financial plan projecting revenues, expenditures, our financial position, and any other external factors for all funds, at least for 5 years in the future. We want to be very cautious about increasing the trend of the expense ratio. And then we want to continue to evaluate our 5-year capital improvements plan, our CIP, and a plan in a logical manner to ensure that we have the financial means, the personnel, time, and physical resources to strategically capitalize on opportunities to meet the needs of our growing town and your infrastructure needs. And as always, we want to maintain our level of services to our town residents from our infrastructure, both existing and planned future ones. And then, as I'm sure you're all aware of, we will continue to work with the state of Maryland and the county on seeking the needed water appropriations so we have adequate water in the future. So that's some of the brief items that we'll be talking about as we plan for our upcoming budget process. So this last slide is kind of difficult to read, but this is our schedule to prepare our FY24 budget. And again, the FY24 budget will begin June 30th, 2023. So we're planning to move through various processes to prepare that budget. I provided an earlier podcast where we had a budget retreat on February 20th to get an overview of the issues facing the town and certain recommendations. So what will happen next during February and March this month, the town manager will forward to the department heads the budget sheets, and they will begin to prepare their budget requests. And this will all have to be consistent not only with the budget and the dollars, but also the town's 2022 strategic plan for our needs. Sometime then the town manager will begin to receive that information. And so for your participation on April the 18th, we will have a regular meeting, town council meeting, to review our proposed FY24 operating budget. This will then be followed at our April 25th meeting to discuss our budget for FY24 for the enterprise funds, that is water, sewer, sanitation, and stormwater management. Then in late April, there'll be a notice of a public hearing about the constant yield tax rate, which will be probably scheduled sometime in May. Mid-May, there will be a public hearing where the residents or anybody can provide public comments on the constant yield rate. There will also be discussion of the proposed fee schedule, and then the introduction of an ordinance for the tax rate. Then on May 23rd, at our town meeting, we will have a town council meeting. We'll have any additional discussion about any outstanding budget issue or questions that council members may have. And again, you're welcome to participate and provide your comments during the public comment agenda item on our agendas. And then finally, there'll be a notice of a public hearing sometime in late May for a public hearing, and then we will actually have our scheduling a public hearing on both the operating budget, the enterprise funds, and the fee schedule on June 13th. So there'll be an opportunity for you to provide oral or written comments from this public hearing. And then by June 20th, at our regular meeting, we will hopefully look at all the comments and ask any additional questions or comments, but eventually we will have to approve a budget no later than June the 20th, because our new budget then begins on July 1st, 2023. So this gives you a brief overview. This information, particularly our budget preparation schedule, has been posted and is available on the town website, and I can certainly provide that information as well in these notes, or you certainly can request it from me as well. So again, thank you for watching this video and also for listening to my podcast. I hope you can watch these and other ones, and I urge you to participate in our budget work sessions during our town council meetings and provide your comments and insights at the public hearings. It's very important that we hear from you. So if you have any questions or comments or suggestions, please email me at djenkins@townofplata.org. Thanks again for listening and watching, and I hope to hear from you soon.